Hey, what's up, fam? For this chapter, I think it's probably one of the ones where, looking at this panel that I'm using, has the least in it, but could have the most out of it. And what I mean by that is when you look at the main characters in Hero Machine's works before Shiki, you had Haru, Gloria, Natsu, Dragneel. Probably their first big moments of emotional kind of like impact of some form of loss. Where you had Haru when after his fight with Shuda and he wanted to save Shuda. Shuda kind of didn't accept that. He wanted to pay for what he did, and he cut off his hand, and he fell down. He thought he had died, and even though Haru wasn't close to him, it was a moment he really kind of looked at it as something that hit him in his life, thinking about why he would do that, thinking what exactly it meant for him. And with Natsu, it was when the guild was destroyed in a Phantom Lord arc, and they had this place that he made as his emotional home, and just seeing that kind of crumble before him, it was a lot. And with Shiki, I think this moment will be his, but to such a different degree, I really want to put. We've seen some moments from him before, like when hanging out, and there was the robot that looked like Michael back on Norma, and you had when they went against the Liga. But this, I think, will be very different because Shiki he's very awkward. He doesn't have a lot of normal social skills because he grew up on a planet with robots. He doesn't really know how to interact with other humans in a lot of ways. But he also hasn't experienced any real tragedies or any real moments. I guess I could really say of realism, and he hasn't felt a lot of I would say unneeded and unknowing pain. Obviously, he lost Ziggy and he lost the other robots, but I think this is a much more deep, kind of piercing level of pain. So let's just kind of get to the chapter itself. And it starts out where we see Homura talking to Jamilov, who she wants to go and use him to meet Drek and Joe so she can work with him. I'm wondering if it is a larger scale of why she would want to, maybe just work with Drac and Joe. Maybe it will lead to Valkyr, or maybe she's working for one of the other members of the Horacion States Galactica. I'd like to put my side on that one because I like the idea that she's a part of a double agent group with Jesse, one of them with Elsie, and one of them with Shiki now going towards Drac and Joe, and just kind of being eyes and ears from one of the other members of the Horacion States Galactica, but definitely is something that within this chapter that I'm a little bit frowned about just because it was a sad moment. But we get back to Shiki, who went and grabbed Hermit, and he's just trying to talk to her. She doesn't seem to have any care towards humans. She's just talking about how they don't have souls. She doesn't like them, and just also looking at it is when I was talking to somebody about like Shiki's potential and like how powerful he can get. Obviously, a writer can make a character as powerful as they want. They could go from being able to attack, blow a hole in the side of a car door to being able to like erase a galaxy or something. But when you talk about power stuff, I think it opens up a conversation that usually just goes into power like levels in swell, I would say. But when I'm thinking about Shiki is I don't really want to think of his main style of increase just to his attacks are more powerful, they hit larger areas. I like the fact that in his fighting style, and I've talked about in different ability. I talked about in a different video. When you look at Haru is much more of like approaching. If you put it all in an obstacle, put an obstacle in front of him, something they had to really deal with. Haru would use his variety of different sword abilities to figure out the best solution for it. Natsu was much more of a heavy hitter, like onslaught style character, and Shiki is much more of a he's very mobile. He wants to approach obstacles and challenges and look for the best angle to go at him, and that's what I like about him so far. Is he definitely feels different in just in that regard. And obviously, fighting style isn't the same as character, personality, and problem solving stuff. But just the fact that he has a very different way of going about action scenes, and I do like that about it. I do like that he's very much mobile, as mobile as all hell. He's flying around, running up walls, running on ceilings and stuff, and I do like that aspect. That is an aspect I will definitely put a thumbs up towards, even though people will be like, it's not character development story thing. I didn't say that it was, but it is something that I definitely enjoy. Is seeing how the characters fight and what they really specialize in. I think is fun. I think a lot of people think it's fun, but I would like that. This is a side note to see him get more mobile and not just power swell. But she's like, talking to Hermit, and he's like, if you're friends with Ziggy, and Ziggy is my grandfather, then I think by proxy you should have to be friends with me. And like I said, Shiki Shiki is like aggressive and like as at friend recruiting. He's doing all these extra gymnastics. Like Haru would have been like, fine, whatever. I guess you want to be my friend, whatever. And yeah, he would have been more cool about it. Natsu would have been like, well, fuck you then. You're either my friend or you're not. Doesn't mean you're my enemy, but it doesn't mean I gotta give a shit about you. And Shiki's just like, if he asked you to be his friend, and he said no, 10 minutes later he's gonna come back and be like, oh, I thought you meant not at the time, so I came back, at a different time. I think that's pretty funny as Shiki. I like that the fact that his awkwardness and his lack of really getting other humans is in a way like I think directly are relating to that, and I do enjoy that of him. Now you can get through the rest of the chapter up, other than one part I gotta mention, pretty fast until the end is the shinobi troll that we saw. That he was part of a quest that it turns out he wasn't like an evil guy. He was actually like a guardian of the town. Shows up to help them, and he goes to protect the townspeople when Jamilov has them open fire, take all these crossbows and light them up. And he didn't like go in like, oh, swat him down and like block him out of the way. I can take it. He directly meat shields himself because he would rather do his job as a guardian than run away in the large scheme of things. Obviously, he was cowardice at one point, but he conquered that fear and came back and did his job. And I gotta say, there was one thing that I think really really caught my attention because I know Hiroshima, his favorite non-animated thing is Game of Thrones, and I'm wondering if anybody else caught that. Is similar to the last giant at the Battle of the Bastards. You look at this troll guy, and just specifically him getting the arrow to the eye, and just that last standing moment before finally collapsing and dying. I thought that was pretty sick, and I believe that is a. I'd like to believe that's a reference to Game of Thrones, but I don't have any proof. But I'd like to believe it is. And then right afterwards, when Jamila was just like, "You guys are not supposed to be aiming for the troll. Aim for the kids. What are you doing?" And then, goddamn Homura just comes up, takes the crossbow, and obviously it's an NPC. It's like a digital person, but they're sentient, so it's really you wouldn't know the difference unless I guess you'd like hurt them to see that they were code or knew already. Like if you just showed up next to them, you'd think they're people. But Shiki's now like bleeding out after he shoulder checked that arrow real good. And even though he's in pain, I think this last part when he sees it Samora is where the real damage is. And I'll be brief on it because I'm already at 9 minutes. Is Shiki hasn't experienced betrayal, and I think, like I said, versus Haru and Natsu, Shiki is way more innocent-minded. He's way more of a pure soul, just because he's got that very childish nature to him. And I think this betrayal is really gonna hurt him, like way more than it should, just be based off his personality and how we've seen him handle situations, like when he fought Aliga and he was still beating Aliga even after he was unconscious. He probably would have killed him and like not really cared that much. Like we've seen, I know I'm using it for comparison, but it is a really good comparison. It's very easy and it's a nice way to determine the differences. Natsu was willing to kill, but he didn't like it. Haru was fine doing it in a situation that really demanded it as well, but he seemed much more He seemed much more knowing it was necessary. And Shiki, I just feel like once you cross that line, you pull that trigger on him, he's going to just blind rage beat somebody until somebody stops or they're dead. I mean, it just kind of seemed that way with the Liga, and I'm wondering if we're gonna get something like here, and that's gonna be the trigger of like even though we saw him just fight for very briefly Jamilov and not be as strong, this will be much more of a pure rage kind of situation and just being like laser down untamed anger and just let loose. And I'm wondering how that's going to go because it's like I said, it's the fact that he hasn't really experienced betrayal, and then the idea of how close he sees his friends, even though if they aren't that in reality that close, just how much he wants to believe they're close, and how much he really doesn't have the heart to deal with something like this is very very interesting. I think. Other than that, good chapter. Like it had a pretty interesting. I think the whole way through, I think was really good. Like even though the troll guy wasn't very important, I did like seeing him go down. Like just being like, I'm gonna fulfill my job, even if I'm pretty much not that important. I know a lot of people are gonna look at, you had a mid level boss argument, which is pretty funny. But I thought more of the fact that he was willing to die, seemingly die for the people, even though he was clearly terrified and acknowledged that he himself wasn't that strong, even if he looked like he should be strong. Anything other than that, drop a comment below on what you thought about this chapter. Thumbs up and like the video if you enjoyed it. Befriend the like button and subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But then I appreciate everyone who's already subscribed. I think go for listening. Bye.